GDP. And that's about a 27% increase in state GDP. So in closing, I really want to talk about the gap. Like, what does all this mean? The data in this report really can help policymakers and community organizations identify the gaps that exist in community resources, and it can guide businesses in finding additional ways to assist their workforce and increase productivity, both in terms of economic growth and in periods of economic recovery. To make these decisions, it's important to first examine both the barriers and the facilitators of financial stability. The factors that work to widen or close the gap between living below the ALICE threshold and being financially stable are outlined in this figure. And I'll make sure that we share this figure with everyone so you get a chance to dig a little bit deeper into it. With that said, I want to just, again, point everyone to the Research Center that exists online. We have a lot more than just the report. The report really is just the broad overview, it's the icing. But the cake really is in the data center. And so if you go to unitedforalice.org, you can look up the Mississippi Data Center, and it provides customizable content, interactive maps and figures. We also have a special topics report, including COVID. We've got one that'll come out next year on equity as well. And you can actually see what ALICE looks like in your community. So if you're in another county, if you're in another region of the state, you can get a chance to see what ALICE looks like locally. So I invite you to go there. Also invite you to go to our website at myunitedway.com, and also to visit the Mississippi United Way Association website at msunitedway.org. And last, please join the movement on Twitter. We're at United for the number 4 ALICE, or you can use the hashtag United for ALICE, the word for, just to keep up with what's going on in ALICE across the United States. And with that said, I will open the floor for any questions that anyone may have.
Wow, Dr. Murray, this is impactful information. And I just want to say before we have a couple of questions for you that came through on the Facebook page, but I want to stress the purpose of us having this conversation today and inviting Dr. Murray is this information has to be effectively shared and utilized. If you're currently writing grants for our communities within the state of Mississippi, this is great data. If you're empowering women in various women's organizations, your church organization, please share this data. Come together and have discussions among yourself about this data. What does data mean? We know as women that we already, it's great to have this report, but we as women on the ground already know where we sit and what the status is of women. We do every day because when we open up our pocketbooks, most times we are coming short on what we need to do. When we're looking at educating our children in the best schools and sending them to the best universities and creating workforce opportunities for them, we know where we are as women. So this data is so crucial and so important, but good information gets better when it's shared. And so I want people to know that they have to share this information. Join the Twitter, as Dr. Murray says. We're going to continue to post out on our Facebook page all of this data. And if you have questions and you want to create a dialogue, please reach out to Women for Progress, the organization. We'll be glad to create discussions, book club conversations that we want to have, Zoom meetings, whatever you need to be able to maximize this information, to be able to share with your legislatures, your policymakers, everywhere there is decision makers. We need to make sure that this information is shared. And when you read it, identify it with your own self, what's going on in your own life, your own family, your own communities, and determine if this information is factual or not. It is crucial information. Now, I start off this first question, and there was also a similar question to it in the chat. When we talk about that threshold, that federal poverty line of $26,500, Dr. Murray, why is it important for economic developers and workforce developers to know what that number is, and how can we use it for women here in the state of Mississippi?
Great, that's a great question. So I alluded to it in the presentation. The federal poverty line really is a demarcation that's used to establish eligibility for certain public benefits, right? So that's really, when we start thinking about why that line is so important, that's really where the starting point is in terms of where you're going to qualify. Now, some programs use a multiplier. So some might say, 150% federal poverty level, 138%. That's really a kind of a tacit acknowledgement that the federal poverty level as it is right now, as set right now, is insufficient if you've got to add on to it, right? So there's already that acknowledgement going. But what we found really in our work, and this was even before the Alice report, was that many families kind of know what level of income they can get to before they start losing benefits. And so if you've got families who, we've had, people I've worked with, people that I've had conversations with who will not take a raise because that money will put them over the ability for the benefits that they rely on. So we have to know what the real experiences are so we know the consequences of that families are experiencing. So let's say you're an employer and you want to give an employee a raise, but that raise knocks them off of public benefits but isn't sufficient enough to make up that gap. That's something we have to take into consideration about that employee. When we're thinking about, why we can't hire people for certain positions, we have to also think about what's the wage level for that position and how that might impact what that person has access to in terms of resources, and start to think about how we can rearrange what we're doing to make sure that we mitigate that impact as much as possible. So it's always useful to be aware of where that line is and where those eligibility criteria fall, but also knowing that that's really insufficient in terms of thinking about what people actually need to maintain a household.
And we'll open the floor to other questions of the panelists and the other guests that are on our Zoom.
Dr. Murray, I wanted you to perhaps, do we have an idea why we've lost middle and higher wage jobs and why there's such an influx in the lower wage jobs?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I can't answer that one. That one's a little bit above my pay grade, but I will say we do have some great policy folks across the state of Mississippi that have kind of looked at that. I would say, they are probably a lot more able to answer the question. I don't know why, but the fact of the matter is, all the job growth really in the state of Mississippi over the last, 15 years has been low wage jobs. And, as I stated in the presentation, that limits the opportunities that Alice families have. So if there were, an influx of medium wage jobs, for instance, then Alice families have more opportunities to gain the kind of employment that would get them over the household survival budget. But when you're really your only option in some communities is to go from one low wage job to another. How do you get out of being an Alice family? It's almost impossible.
I think
so we've seen, actually, I didn't show this graph in this presentation. We've seen over that time period from 2007 to 2019, the percentage of families across the state who fall below the Alice threshold has actually increased from about 37% to 50%.
I think this is a good time, Dr. Murray, also to state some good news, too, is that right now where we are post-COVID, if you can say we're post-COVID, is there's some opportunities for women out there. When we talk about the low-wage jobs that currently exist in the state of Mississippi, women, we have to also point women to those opportunities. There is jobs in tech. Women right here can remain in the state of Mississippi and take some opportunities, take advantage of those opportunities that are in tech. We know now that there's tech jobs around coding, cybersecurity, all of those types of opportunities where women can work from home. And, the company might be in Idaho or Washington, D.C. or New York, but they can work for those entities from home. That's going to require us making sure we utilize our workforce training dollars to get women ready, fill that skill gap that women have to make sure that they move into these opportunities. There's a lot of different opportunities out there. Of course, transportation. You mentioned some industries in your report that where there's some real opportunities for transportation and other jobs in industries that we need to look at. So what we as women need to look at is make sure that look at your skill gap, look at your resumes, see what opportunities you have there. If you are not prepared from a skill level standpoint, you need to seek out those workforce development opportunities to move yourself into that area where you can qualify or even just have the ability to be able to reach out to those jobs. So that's extremely important for us to begin to make those assessments. As we talk to our young people, we need to make sure as they move into college and getting ready to graduate, even before they graduate college, we need to make sure that they have the information to make good decisions for themselves on the opportunity. We want our young people, of course, to take advantage of their gifts. How can you use your gifts and your talents to make sure you move yourself in these higher paying jobs and higher paying opportunities? We want our kids to live their dreams, to live out their gifts and their talents. But also we need to look at that. How can we shape those gifts and talents to what we call the future of work, not only in the state of Mississippi, but in our country? So there's real opportunities for us to be able to have engagement. There is solutions. With this data provides us the status quo. It says to us, this is what's happening. These are where the issues are, the problems are, or the challenges are. But there are real solutions out there for us as women. We have to make sure that we move together strategically to make that happen. Economic developers, workforce developers, our leaders, in the policymakers that exist in Mississippi. It's important for women. Ms. Cassandra Welton is going to be coming with a call to action to help us understand what we need to do to make real change for women here in the state of Mississippi. That's going to be critical for us. So there's some real opportunities for us beyond COVID. This is women's time to rise. It is women's time to rise, but we must take advantage of the opportunities. You talked about the programs that exist here in Mississippi, the TANF programs, the SNAP programs, these other opportunities. Those thresholds to meet are so very low. Most women don't even know about those programs. And the ones that do know about them, they know that they may be working 20 hours a week and they can't access those opportunities or those TANF programs. It is a real challenge for people. So I just wanted to stress that. And I'm going to turn it back over to the moderator.
I'd like to make one comment before we move on. I certainly appreciate those comments coming from you, Ms. Jones. I know you've done your research on all of the options. And I want to applaud Dr. Murray on his research as well. But as a researcher, Dr. Murray, that's my background for over 40-some years. I'd like to know, what was your recommendation from your research? As a researcher, I know you had strong recommendations that we can take to our policymakers, because numbers don't lie. You had some very good demographics in your research. So what did you recommend to policymakers in this state to help us ensure that Mississippi becomes a state that recognizes equal pay? That had to be one of your recommendations. Can you respond to that?
Certainly. So thanks for that opportunity. So I kind of flew by this slide for time constraints. But, there is a slide that we have, it is in the report, that outlines the lived experiences of households that live below the Adams threshold that we found, how that differs from financially stable households. And then in the middle, there are these factors that close the gap and factors that widen the gap. And so when we talk about factors that close the gap, we're talking about reliable transportation, wages, efficient financial tools that are accessible to families, because we know a lot of Mississippi families are unbanked and underbanked. We know that there's quality, affordable health care. There's a big discussion about Medicaid expansion right now that would be extremely beneficial for Alice households. Affordable child care. We have a child care crisis going around the state right now that is widening this gap. And then also the affordable housing and food. And so if we focus on policies that address those specific areas, I think we'll make a lot of progress in lowering the number of ALICE households that we have across the state. So it's just going to take a lot of collective effort to do that. It's also going to take a lot of centering the voices and the experiences of families who live below the ALICE threshold and making sure that whatever it is that we're developing and talking about is relevant to them, is what they need, and it's something that's going to be accessible to them.
Okay. Thank you again, Dr. Murray, for your work, your research, and I'm sure we'll be calling you back in. Let's give Dr. Murray a round of applause, please, for being with us. And now we have time for Cassandra Welchland to come and give us our call to action. After all this, I'm sure there's a major call. Ms. Cassandra Welchland, will you come at this time?
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. And again, Dr. Murray, this was really incredible, again, to hear this. There definitely is a call to action because, and I'm going to say it in the words of Marian Wright Elderman, no woman, no person should have to choose between the child that they love and the job that they need. And we all can attest and agree to that. Everyone has a right to earn a living and have a safe family, a safe household, so they can raise that family and live in a community. And so there are a couple of call to actions that I have. And when you talk about what are the solutions, definitely centering the narratives and the voices of the ALICEs and all the other women and families that are their voices and their stories, centering them. But just as policies and systems was created that disenfranchise families and disenfranchise these communities, there are policy solutions that can reverse this. I always believe that the policy table should also look like people's kitchen tables. And so there's a couple of things I would say. We need to pass an equal pay law in the state of Mississippi. Right now, we can close that wage gap and put $15 billion back into the state economies, cut the poverty rate in half, and cut the child poverty rate by a third. The next thing we need to do is increase the minimum wage. Dr. Murray and I were both in a hearing last week that talked about this, when we were saying increase the minimum wage so that our families can at least begin to make ends meet. The other thing I would say is we need to expand Medicaid. Not only would that bring in more jobs, but then you have a healthier workforce. Those are some things that need to happen now. And the other thing I would say is the American Rescue Plan, those monies are flowing right now, are coming to the state for child care. We need to urge the Department of Human Services to make sure that they put that money where it needs to be so that families can access those child care subsidies and also increase the rate for child care centers. What can you do? I need you to go on MSBWR's website, MSBWR, sign the petition for the equal pay petition. We need you to do that right now. And then sign up for our emails so that you can get engaged. We have a campaign called Power of the Pocketbook, and we're going to be partnering with Sabrina on this art project that she is going to be taking on. We want to be able to say women's pocketbooks have done more with less, but it shouldn't be that way. And we want to begin to elevate their stories and elevate how powerful their pocketbooks are. So join the MS Black Women's Roundtable with our Women's Economic Security Initiative, and let's center women, let's center Black women in the state. MSBWR.org. Sign that equal pay petition.
Thank you, Ms. Welchland. We appreciate that, and we will respond to that call. We'll now have our closing comments coming from my co-chair, Bill Rawls, and I want to invite you to join us again next month for another exciting topic with Women for Progress Lunch and Learn. Ms. Rawls, will you close us out, please?
Thank you so much. Thank you again, Dr. Murray, for providing an overview of the Alice, Mississippi report as we continue to learn and understand the struggles of households and how it relates to financial insecurities. I'm so looking forward to seeing the pandemic report when it comes available. Great presentation again. Also, I would like to thank the panel for all of your hard work and your contributions. Women Progress is fortunate to have each and every one of you on board. Congratulations again to our Women-Owned Business of the Month and our Member of the Month. Congratulations. Now I would like to pause for door prize giveaway, and I'm going to make this really quick. And the way we're going to do it is I'm just going to ask you to pick a number from 1 to 10 and place in the comment box. And while you're doing that, I'm going to share a little information about the prizes and donation. So thank you to Tony Morgan, the broker associate with the Agency Real Estate Services, for donating $25 gift card. Also, thank you to attorney Alicia Netterville, who is the owner of Hemp Seed, and she donated bath soap beads, Revival foot scrub, and lip balm. And also a big thank to Dr. Lafari Young for the beautiful gift basket for Lafari and Company Cosmetics. So by now you should have placed the numbers, and I see 1, 6, so I'll come back to that. Give me 1 minute. And lastly, a friendly reminder for the upcoming election for Hinds County Sheriff, the Hinds County Constable, the Hinds County Court Judge, Sub-District 1, that is scheduled to take place on November the 2nd. Also, we ask you to tune in for Working Woman Report on Wednesdays at noon. And let me go ahead and draw a number. I'm going to make this pretty quick. Number 8.
That's Miss Portia Moore.
Okay. Number 6.
And I believe that is Miss, I don't see number 6. Number 6.
Number 4.
Number 4, Miss Juanita Brown.
And number 1.
And number 1, we don't have a 1. We have a 5. And we have another 4, Dr. Kimmy Stout.
You had a 6 as well, Willie.
Okay,
Sabrina,
6.
right.
Sabrina.
Number 1 is Irene German.
Okay, that's it. Congratulations, ladies. And so you can pick up your donations at my office, which is located at 134 East of Mid Street. And I'm sure many of you have my phone number, but I can also put that information in the comment. To all of our Facebook friends and members, it has been a pleasure to be with you all today. And don't forget to vote. And also join us for next month for our November Lunch and Learn on November the 2nd at the same time.
And Ms.
Turn
Michelle,
it back over to the chair.
One more thing that we want to add to the final remarks. We have Senator Hillman Fraser. He's in the session with us today. We thank him for coming in and joining us for today. He, Senator Hillman Fraser, and Senator John Horn have been such leaders around this cause of equal pay in Mississippi. We appreciate them for conducting one of the most informative hearings, and our first hearing on equal pay in the state of Mississippi on this past Tuesday. They did a very equal and fair job in exposing and sharing the information and bringing voices to this issue. So we definitely want to give them a pat on the back and just say leadership matters in the state of Mississippi, and we appreciate their long-term leadership here in the state of Mississippi and their engagement with us as an organization. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. I always want to be respectful of the time, and we look forward to you meeting with us next month on November the 2nd. Have a good rest of the afternoon.